In this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to let you know who's in the 2025 NBA draft. I'm also going to cover which players have not made their intentions known, which players are just testing the waters, and which players have decided to go back to school. So stay tuned for this episode of the 2025 NBA Draft Tracker. I'm giving you live updates as they come in. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe. I am flying solo dolo today. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Right before we get into this episode, I want to let you know about the Locked On newsletter. Check it out, lockedondaily.com. It is Good Friday, Easter weekend. By the end of the day, end of tonight, we'll know the playoff picture. But whether your team is in the playoffs or your team is competing in the play-in tonight or your team is preparing for the NBA draft, the Locked On newsletter has you covered. It is your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage. Delivered right to your inbox at lockedondaily.com. And if you are not subscribed to the Locked On NBA Big Board YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode. I got this ridiculous goal of putting out at least a couple podcasts or episodes a day. I don't know how sustainable it is, but it is draft season. It is draft season. It's around the corner. I have a lot of takes to get off my chest. I have a lot of things that I want to say, whether it's about the 2025 NBA draft. I want to go back and share my thoughts on the 2024 NBA draft and what I learned and so on. So stick with us. Subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so you can be notified. All right, let's get down to business. All right, first of all, let's talk about the top names that have not declared for the 2025 NBA draft. As I am recording, it is 1 p.m. Central Time, April 18th, 2025, and Cooper Flagg, the projected number one pick in the 2025 NBA draft, has not declared for the draft. Now, if you are a fan of the Jazz or the Wizards or the Hornets, I wouldn't be worried. I personally think that Cooper Flagg is going to declare. I don't think he's on the fence. I know those are the rumors, and I don't have any inside information. This is just my personal opinion. I think he's going to declare. I don't think he's going back to Duke. I think it's the same for Ace Bailey, who has also not declared. Same with VJ Edgecombe. I mean, I've seen all the pictures online about Baylor not having any single players coming back, and they have a completely wiped out roster. And so I don't think anybody expects VJ Edgecombe to be back. You don't expect Ace Bailey to come back. And so I don't think anybody should expect Cooper Flagg to come back to Duke. Even financially, it just does not make sense for him to come back. I think the guaranteed contract for number one picks like around $50 million or something like that. So with that being said, those three are the biggest names that have not declared. But let's talk about the names that have declared for the 2025 NBA draft. I'm going to share my thoughts briefly on each player. I'm going to share my personal draft range. And this is not in any particular order, but these are the guys that have made it known that they are all in. They're not going back to school, and they are declaring for the 2025 NBA draft. The first name, the top prospect, is Dylan Harper. He is the projected number 2 pick. On my big board, Harper averaged 19 points, 4.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists, shot 48% from the floor, 33% from three, 6'6", 220. I think he is an absolute lock to be the number 2 pick in the 2025 NBA draft, and he has made it known. He is not going back to Rutgers. He is off to the big leagues, and I believe he's out in California preparing for the draft. The next prospect that has declared for the draft and made it official is Jeremiah Fears. I think Jeremiah Fears is a top 5 pick. That's just my opinion, but I think Jeremiah Fears should go in the top 5. 6'4", 185 is probably one of the biggest surprises. I don't think anybody saw Jeremiah Fears as a projected one and done first round pick or lottery pick coming into the season. He reclassified, supposed to be in high school, supposed to be preparing for the prom, but right now he's preparing for the NBA draft. He averaged 17 points, 4.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists per game. And Jeremiah Fears is all in on the NBA draft. And then there's Tre Johnson from Texas, led the SEC in scoring, just a pure bucket getter, averaged 19.9 points per game. 19.9 points per game, but he shot 39% on 7 attempts per game. I mean, I'm rounding up a little bit, but if you want to be totally technical, 39.7% on 6.8 attempts per game. I think he is going to be instant offense. I think he's a much better passer than he's given credit for. I've talked about that before at length, and he is all in on the 2025 NBA draft. Then there's Derik Queen. I think Derik Queen is a guy that has a draft range that could be from mid lottery to late lottery. It's all in the eyes of the beholder here, but Derik Queen has declared for the NBA draft, 6'10", 245, double-double machine. Didn't average a double-double, but it was close. 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, one of the most skilled bigs in this class. And like I said, I think that Derik Queen has a draft range that can go from mid-lottery to late lottery, and it just depends. I mean, there's some teams that may not even have him as a top 20 pick. You just never know. And then there's Kon Knueppel from Duke, the lone Duke player that has officially declared 6'7", 215. I think he's one of the safer prospects of this class. When it comes to Knueppel, I mean, it was a pure wave for me. Came in on the season high on him, dropped a little bit, but as the season went on, the shots start falling a little bit more. I really started to value what he does, and he's just rock solid. He is a shooter. He's connector. He's tough. And I do think that Kon Knueppel is a lottery pick. Now, there are some teams that I've spoken to that are kind of on the fence about him. He may not have like the elite measurables as far as length and athleticism that you're looking for in the wing, but I think he's safe because he shoots the ball, he competes, he passes, and I think he's just a guy that contributes to winning. And I think Kon Knueppel is a lock for the lottery. And then there is Kasparas Giacochonis, another prospect that I think is a lottery pick. Giacochonis is a 6'6" freshman point guard, combo guard, however you look at it, from Illinois. He averaged 15 points, 5.7 rebounds, 4.7 assists per game. Good size at 6'6". He is all in on the NBA draft. Came into the season with the expectations of being a one-and-done pick. A lot of people saw him as a potential lottery pick. I think it's safe to put him in that range, but for me personally, I have some concerns. A very high turnover ratio, 3.7 turnovers per game. I thought he was a little predictable at the end of the season, but I know there's some teams that like him due to his size and his passing, and he's tough and he rebounds. So I think it's pretty safe to say Kasparas Giacochonis will be a lottery pick. And then there's Yegor Dimin. I thought that he would really be on the fence about leaving or going, and Yegor was one of the first to let his intentions known that he is going to the NBA. He made his decision last week. The main appeal for Yegor, 6'9", is the best passer in this class. I think he had a tough decision. At least maybe I think it should have been a tougher decision, but he's confident and being ready for the NBA. Got off to a phenomenal start this year, then hit the wall, and then kind of had some good games at the end of the season, at least in the NCAA tournament, that I think really solidified him as a lottery pick. But with the size and the passing, I think that he's a safe pick. If he shoots the ball well in workouts, then I think he could go from being a lottery pick to possibly moving up into the first half of the lottery. But he only shot 27% from three. He's a guy that when you look at his shooting mechanics, you think like he should be a much better shooter than the numbers indicate. So I think for NBA teams, they're going to really be taking a deep dive into Yegor's overall shooting touch because the shot looks good. All right, when we return, I'm going to talk about a few more players that have made it official and have declared for the 2025 NBA draft. Stay tuned. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts that are ready to take your business on to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. So whether you need extra hands for your project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It is fast and it's easy. All you have to do is post a job. It is free and it is simple. And within a day, multiple qualified candidates will be there for you to choose from. It's cost effective. So instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent to grow your business today. All right, second segment, Jace Richardson. Jace Richardson was one of the biggest surprises of the college basketball season. Now, I can't say I saw Jace Richardson as a one-and-done guy. I can't say I saw him as a projected first-round pick. I knew who he was, but he totally just kind of came out of nowhere in a sense. And the main appeal for Jace Richardson is the efficiency. He is one of the smartest players in this class. When I say smart, I'm just talking about his shot selection, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's very efficient, and he's one of the younger players in this class. He won't turn 19 until around training camp begins. He averaged 12 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1.9 assists per game, shot 49% from the floor, 41% from three, 83% from the foul line. Now, I'll be totally honest, I still have some reservations and concerns. I don't know if he's a 1 or a 2, but I've had someone mention to me that maybe he could be like a Lou Williams type guy. If he's Lou Williams, that means he's going to play a long time. But Jace Richardson is a player that I think is going to end up being selected in the lottery. But 6'3", 185, average athlete by NBA standards. I think he makes up for what he lacks in physical tools and athleticism with just savvy. He's got the genes and the pedigree that a lot of people are really high on. And he's just efficient. Like, he just does not make a lot of mistakes. So I think that he is a projected lottery pick. All right, let's talk about Asa Newell, 6'10", 220-something pound freshman from Georgia. I think he is a projected lottery pick. Could probably fall anywhere from 10 to 20. The main appeal for Asa Newell is the athleticism, the motor, the energy. I do think he's stuck somewhere between being a 4 and a 5, but he averaged 15.4 points, 6.9 rebounds per game, and 2 stocks per game. Is just like a phenomenal athlete, plays with a lot of energy. It's very interesting because I don't know if he's good on the glass or not. You look at the rebounding numbers and 6.9 rebounds per game, that's solid. But he's a lot more active on the offensive glass than he is on the defensive glass. But the appeal for him is, again, the size, the athleticism, the motor. He's a situational 4-5. And like I mentioned, I think his draft range is anywhere between 10 to 20. And then there's Colin Murray-Boyles, the most difficult prospect for me to evaluate. I've talked about this at length. I'll give you a brief summary. But he's 6'7", 245 pounds. He was the lone bright spot in South Carolina's season. He averaged 16.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.3 blocks, and 1.5 steals per game. The appeal for him is that he is the type of player that is a mismatch on the block. He's a good passer. He's a smart defender. He impacts the game on the defensive end of the floor. But the knock is that 6'7", 245 pounds. He does not space the floor. Most of his damage comes around the basket. He can't put the ball on the floor. He is a mismatch on the college level. I have some real concerns. There are some people that like him as a first-round pick. I know I've talked to teams that are like, he does not fit what they are trying to do. So I think he has a wide draft range that could end up being late lottery to in the 20s. But I do think that Colin Murray-Boyles is going to be a first-round pick. And then UConn freshman Liam McNeely. has declared for the NBA draft. McNeely, to me, had an up and down freshman year, 14.5 points, 6 rebounds, 2.3 assists. I am not as high on McNeely as others. Shot 38% from the floor, 31% from three, and he came into the season with a reputation as a knockdown shooter. I get he has good size. I get that he is a connector. I do think that his draft range is as a first-round pick. However, I have major concerns about the athleticism. And if the shooting doesn't translate, I mean, I think he's going to be a better shooter than he was this year. But I think his game is really going to depend on how well he shoots the ball. But I do think that he is safely cemented as a first-round pick. And then Michigan's Danny Wolf has made it official. He's declaring for the NBA draft. Danny Wolf is one of the more unique prospects, 7 foot, 250 pounds. What makes Wolf so unique is that he moves like 7 foot, 250 pound guys are not supposed to move. I know that's probably not the correct way to word that, but he just moves totally different, very fluid. He is a really good passer, turns the ball over a lot, high risk, high reward passer. But when you have a 7-footer that can post up, that can rebound, that can space the floor a little bit, that can make plays for others, he is very unique and appealing. And I think that Danny Wolf is a lock to be a first-round pick. And then there's Will Riley, very interesting player, 6'8", 195-pound freshman from Illinois, had an up-and-down year, got off to like an absolutely blazing start. It was like 31 points on like 10 of 19 or 10 of 13 shooting or something like that in his first game. Kind of hit a wall, but then he had some good games throughout the season. He had like 24 points on 7 of 9 shooting against Ohio State. He had a 27-point game against Minnesota, 22 points against Purdue. 6'8", can shoot, is a better passer than he's given credit for. I do have some concerns about his athletic limitations, but there is a demand for wings with positional size that can shoot and pass. So I think that Will Riley is a first-round pick. All right, Rasheer Fleming has made it known that he is declaring for the 2025 NBA draft. Rasheer Fleming averaged 14.7 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, 1.4 steals, 1.3 assists. But more importantly, at 6'9", he shot 53% from the floor and 39% from three on a healthy 4.5 attempts per game. He is your inside-outside big that can protect the rim. He can make plays at the rim. I think that he has a draft range that can go anywhere from late lottery to top 20. I think he's a top 20 pick, and Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe has made it official that he's done with St. Joe, and he is off to the big leagues. All right, let's talk about a few guys that I think are in the mix to be first rounders. I don't think they're locks to be first round picks, but I think they are in the mix, but have chosen to go all in, which made it interesting. One is Labaron Philon. Labaron Philon is a player that I didn't think was going to be a one and done guy, but he established pretty early on this season that he was not going to be in Tuscaloosa long. I don't know if he's a first round lock. Well, I'll say this much. I think he'll go in the first round. If I were a betting man, I would bet he goes in the first round. However, the way this whole NIL thing is, and I'll touch on that later on, I do think that he could probably make more money if he returned to school. How crazy is that? That's the world we're living in. But 6'4", 180-pound point guard, averaged 10.6 points, 3.8 assists, 3.3 rebounds, was a guy that just found a way to impact games with his hustle, his energy, his passing, his defense. Kind of has a little bit of shades of Rajon Rondo. So I think he's a first-round pick. I just don't really know his range. I would say anywhere between 15 through 30. And then there's Arkansas's Boogie Fland. Boogie Fland has decided to go all in on the NBA draft. I think that's the smart decision. I would definitely not have returned to Arkansas with Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas returning along with DJ Wagner. So I think for him, going to the draft was a smart thing. Fland was a guy that I saw as a first-round pick. His season was cut short to about 21 games due to a hand injury. If you look at the numbers, 13.5 points, 5 assists, 3.2 rebounds. Those are solid numbers. The main appeal for him is the outside shooting, and he can play on or off the ball. A little bit on the smaller side. I think he has a range anywhere from 20 to 40. It's all in the eyes of the beholder. He could be a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the top 20. But then he's also a player that I wonder if he slips and falls out of the first round, as there are concerns about the size and the finishing. But one of the things I will say about Boogie Fland, he really, really impressed me as a team player when he chose to not only stay in school at Arkansas, but he chose to come back and chose to join his teammates late in the season when he had what was thought to be a season-ending injury. A lot of guys would have been like, hey, I'm out of here, but I thought he showed some character there. And then last but not least, there is Adou Thiero, his teammate at Arkansas. I thought Thiero was going to be a first-round pick. He had an injury that basically sidelined him at the end of February. And, sometimes when you have an injury, you kind of lose some of the buzz and the luster that you had. But I thought that he positioned himself to be a first-round pick. He averaged 15.1 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 2.3 stocks per game. Can't shoot. Not a good shooter. Career 28% shooter from three over 3 years. But the physical tools, the athleticism, and the motor, I think, is very intriguing for NBA teams. I don't know if he's a lock to be a first-round pick. I think he falls in that 20 to 40 range, which, again, it puts you in tricky territory in today's climate with the type of money that is available in NIL. All right, when we return, that was a long list of guys, longer than I expected. When we return, I'm going to talk about the guys that are just testing the waters. They got a toe in the NBA, but they also got their foot planted on returning back to school. Some of it could be for leverage. So I'm going to talk about the players that are on the fence, and then I'm going to talk about the guys that say, you know what, man, I'm going to take this NIL bag and I'm going to enjoy this campus life as a millionaire. Crazy world we live in. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where in the world did all the money go, I know I just made a payment today and I knew where the money went, but I wish it would have stayed in my account longer. But between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is very easy to lose track. And that is where Monarch Money comes in. Monarch Money is like your personal CFO, giving you the visibility and control over your finances that you want. And Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investment, your spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And managing money with Monarch is simple for your partner, for you and your partner. It's smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. So take control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, last segment. The highest rated player that I have listed as being on the fence, which means he is testing the waters while maintaining his NCAA eligibility, is Georgetown freshman Thomas Sorber. Sorber is a 6'10", 255-pound man in the middle who had a really, really impressive freshman year. 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 2 blocks, and 1.5 steals per game. Is another player. Came out of nowhere. Wasn't really hyped or talked about as a one-and-done guy. Is skilled. Has some work to do on his body. From my knowledge, he was like, a big guy, overweight. Is getting in shape. Once he gets the body right, the sky is the limit. He had a season-ending foot injury, which could impact his decision. But from everything that I have been told, is that if he decides to return to school, he could command a heavy, heavy bag. He could command a heavy bag, could even make lottery-type money. First-year NBA lottery pick type money if he returns to school. So he is on the fence. And then there's Tahaad Pettiford from Auburn. freshman guard who had some very, very big moments. When I think of Pettiford's season, I think of the big game that he had against Houston, in Houston as a freshman. Janai Broome didn't play. He is the type of player that's not afraid of the moment. Lightning quick, gets in the paint, phenomenal athlete. Like, he had a play where he went to dunk on somebody, he missed it, but at 6'1", 175, he has the bounce to make up for some of the lack of size that he has. I know the NBA is a little rough on smaller guards, but Pettiford is entering the draft, but he's maintaining his eligibility. I think that if he found a situation in the first round that he liked and there was a team that was really invested in him, he'd stay in, but he does have a chance to return to school, make a lot of money, and be one of the top players in the country next year. I just like Tahaad Pettiford. I've actually had an NBA team tell me, and this was in relation to Jeremiah Fears, and they were asking, why would I draft Jeremiah Fears in the top 5 and I can go get Pettiford later on in the first round, who is a little bit smaller, but he's a better shooter. We know that he has the same level of speed as far as being able to get both feet in the paint, and we know that he can play on a winning team and play a role. So I thought that was a very interesting question. Right, and then there's Alex Condon. I think he is another guy that has some first-round range, that has decided to enter the draft, but test the water. 6'11", 230, average 10.6 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 1.3 blocks per game. The appeal for him is the athleticism, the connective passing, the ability to put the ball on the floor and make plays out of DHOs. So I think Alex Condon is in that 20 to 40 range, along with Yaxel Lendeborg. Now, Yaxel Lendeborg is kind of surprising to me. He's a little bit on the older side. He was at UAB. You can't have a more phenomenal game than what he had in the AAC tournament. He had a game against Eastern Carolina where he had 30 points. This is real numbers. 30 points, 20 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, 4 blocks. For the season, he averaged 17.7 points, 11.4 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.8 blocks, 1.7 steals on 52, 35, 75 shooting splits. To me, at his age, with those numbers, he'll be 22 on draft night. He'll turn 23 in September. To me, those numbers, probably in any other class previous to this year, would be, you know what, go to the league. Well, Lendeborg decided to enter the transfer portal, has committed to Michigan, and has also decided to test the waters. I think that he's probably going to go to Michigan, but he's got an interesting decision to make. He's got an interesting decision because I don't think he's going to be able to have a better season at Michigan next year than what he had this year. And if he does, he's going to be 23 years old. But I think that he's going to end up going to school in Ann Arbor, but he has a really, really tough decision to make. And then the Cedric Coward, we talked about him yesterday. I've heard first-round buzz. I've actually heard from a reliable source that there's a team that has him as a top 10 player on their board based off of their metrics. Only played 6 games this year, averaged 17.7 points, 7 rebounds, 3.7 assists. Was 55% from the floor, 40% from 3, 84% from the foul line, but 6'6", 7 foot plus wingspan. He has declared for the NBA draft, but maintained his college eligibility. And he's got some pretty heavy hitters that are recruiting him from Duke to Kansas to Alabama to the defending national champion Florida are some of the options. And so he is a player that is going to have an interesting decision, but I mentioned yesterday on the episode that I think he should go. So those are the guys that have declared. All right, here are the guys that have declared from the international ranks. You got Noah Asinghe, who has declared. I think Noah Asinghe, at least for me, he's the lottery range. His teammate Ben Saraf at Radio Farm Ulm in Germany has also declared. I think that he is a first-round pick. Then you got Boogie Markovic from Serbia. I think his range is anywhere from 25 to 40. Hanson Yang. I'm a big Hanson Yang fan, and the way this draft has thinned out, I think Hanson Yang could end up being a first-round pick. He has made it official and declared for the NBA draft. Ethan Almanza, a guy that man, if he should have came out a couple years ago. He had real buzz. One of the most decorated international prospects ever. I feel like his draft buzz is at the very minimum right now. He's still young, only 20 years old, but he has made it official and declared for the NBA draft. And then there's Noah Pinda from France. I think he has first round buzz. He has made it official and declared for the NBA draft, along with Alex Tui from Australia. So those are some of the names that I have in my top 60-ish that have made it official and declared for the draft. A few more guys that are on the fence, but I think are likely to return to school that I like. You got John Blackwell from Wisconsin. You have Miles Byrd from San Diego State, who at one point I thought, man, he could be a first-round pick, but I don't know if he has enough offense. But the main appeal for him is on the defensive end. You got Magoon Gawath. I'm very intrigued by his potential as like a toolsy 7-footer that can protect the rim. He has declared for the draft, but is also testing the waters. And then there's Cam Williams from Tulane, a player that I've written about, I've talked about, one of my top sleepers. He has committed to Kentucky, but he's also testing the waters. I think he ends up returning to school. And then some other names that came in. PJ Haggerty. I'm surprised that he has decided to enter the transfer portal, but I thought that, I think he's a fringe player. I mean, I think it probably makes the most sense for him to return to school, but he has decided to test the waters and enter the portal. And then Xaivian Lee, another player that I've talked about this year at Princeton, he has decided to test the waters, but he has committed to Florida. And I think realistically, he's going to end up at Florida. There's a few more names, but let's talk about the guy that has kind of set the bar, in a sense, for this whole NIL thing, and that is JT Toppin. JT Toppin has decided to return to Texas Tech. And when I first heard the rumor that he was getting $4 million, I thought, like, you know what, that's pretty crazy. I did some research, talked to some sources that are connected, and the $4 million sounds like it is pretty legit. And when you have a guy like Toppin, who I think is a top 30 prospect, I think he measured out at 6'7" at the combine last year. I think if he were 6'10", 6'11", he'd be a lottery pick. I mean, he had a absolutely strong year. I mean, he had the sophomore jump that you'd expect. I mean, I thought he had a good combine last year, but he comes back as a sophomore this year at Texas Tech. He wins Conference Player of the Year, averages 18.2 points, 9.4 rebounds, shot 55% from the floor. And I remember talking to NBA scouts about, did he improve his draft stock despite the big spike in numbers? And one of the questions was, did he grow? If he's the same height, then despite the big jump in production, we don't know if everything is going to translate, because he's listed at 6'9", 225, measured out at 6'7" at the combine last year, but his game is more so of a 4'5". He's a little bit undersized. But $4 million, the $4.1 million I heard, that would make him like, that would put him on par as being paid the equivalent of what the 13th pick in the draft gets. So with that being said, I think this NIL factor is legit. It is real. I'm hearing multiple guys getting deals at $3 million or more. I think Sorber is a type of player that can get more than Toppin. And so I think that is going to be a major factor in some of these guys, their decision to return to school or to enter the draft. We talked about Carter Bryant at Arizona, who may have a tough decision. So with that being said, I do think that testing the waters could be like a leverage play as far as increasing your NIL. As some of these teams, I mean, I'm thinking about this Baylor team right now that currently doesn't have anybody on the roster. If a player decides to test the waters and you see his draft stock is coming up, maybe he can command a little bit more money to decide to go to a school like Baylor, or a school that is getting desperate at the end of the cycle because they feel like they are missing that impact player that could help them win a championship. But that is the crazy world that we live in this NIL era that is, I mean, it is the wild, wild west. Well, anyway, that is my updated 2025 NBA draft tracker. I mean, I know there's a lot of names that I missed out on, but I just mentioned some of the players that I thought were in my top 50 to 60 prospects that had either declared for the draft, are testing the waters, or have decided to return to school. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board Podcast. Once again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Hopefully everyone has a great weekend, and I am out of here.